So, I think I figured out how to learn any language. And it's so dumb. I'm so dumb. It's the most obvious thing in the world. And it's so easy. And it may actually be the best way. Maybe. At least as far as learning to read a language, especially an ancient language. There are so many ways to learn languages. I've been talking about this recently, especially in the context of ancient Greek and how ancient Greek is so hard to learn. And the conclusion I came to was because ancient Greek, it seems similar to other languages like Latin and other modern languages. There's some vocabulary, but yet there's all this vocabulary. How do you learn? How do you really do it? How do you learn? How do you acquire any languages through input? So what do you do? Read. That was my stupid, dumb conclusion in some other videos, which is so stupid it's brilliant because it works. Now, there's a big problem because if you don't know how the language works, how can you possibly read it? Like once you get to a lower intermediate level, you can read a lot of things and you can, struggle through, do all kinds of things to learn, but you just need to read, even if you don't understand every word. Anyway, the point is, what if you know next to nothing? Like you're basically a beginner. So I decided to test this because I've seen some videos I've done up on Coptic here on this channel, and I really haven't studied Coptic for over a year. This is now December 2024, and it was September 2023 the last time I made a video of my studying Coptic with the wonderful Y Snaushompt. And I've picked up some vocabulary. I've studied a lot of the grammar books, but unless you're using it actively, how does that stick? How does the vocabulary stick? So I decided, well, I have this, which is a side-by-side translation of the Gospels of the New Testament. So, cool, great. This is the easiest thing one can access in a lot of languages, pretty much all of them. Everything's translated, thankfully. Bible, especially New Testament, in all the languages in the world. I really don't know Coptic, though, the way, say, I know Greek. Like, I know Greek. Anyway, I want to talk more about some of these details. First, I want to show you what I mean. I know over a year ago, a year and a half ago, I did a lot of I had almost gone through a whole Coptic grammar book and, but not a very long one, but just enough to learn some basics of it. I'm sure I've forgotten most of it. It doesn't stick, but the thing I would really want to do is to have a graded reader or something. That would be nice, but we don't have this available. Instead, there's this. So how do you do this? If you have just a smattering of grammar, very little, and you can sound out words, that phonic sounding out thing, there's a lot of brilliance in that concept. So here is what I think will work. I'm going to start experimenting. I just started this now. I started this experiment right now. It seemed more effective than I thought. And anyway, so this is it. We have English on the right and Bohairic Coptic on the left. In the beginning was the word, and the word was imperfect with God, and the God, indefinite article, was the word. Now, this version is great because it's essentially an English translation of the Coptic, very similar to the usual English translations we see, whether new revised, what is it called, the NIV, or the King James Bible version. The King James Version of the Bible. So the things that are in brackets are things that are in Coptic that we don't need for English syntax, and things that are in parentheses are the things that are in English, usually that are not represented in the Coptic. Anyway, the point is you could use a normal English translation. This helps a little bit more if you want to really get to the details, but I don't think that's utterly key for this. This could be a normal English translation. This could be Coptic. It could be Norwegian. It could be Japanese. I think this works. So, again, that first phrase. In beginning was the word. Chen darke ne pisachipe. Interesting. Now, I remember some of these words. I remember pisachi, the word pe is tarke. I maybe had seen that. Tarke. I mean, I'm only analyzing this now grammar-wise. Remember, so chen means in. Even if I didn't, thankfully, word for word, this is easy. Pisachi. Word for word, this is actually not that hard to follow. Chen tarke ne pisachi pe. My pronunciation isn't particularly good because I just don't know this language well, but I want to. How do I do it? I need to get input. How do I get input? I can't because I don't know the language well enough. It's a dilemma. Here's the trick. Okay, next phrase. And the word was with God. Woch bisachi nafke chaten epnuti. That's the word for God. Epnuti, it's abbreviated like this. Like you see in different languages that might want to abbreviate, like the tetragrammaton or whatever it would be, which is not, of course, in the original Greek. It's just kurios, as I recall. But anyway, they do it like this, and it's epnuti. That's how this is pronounced. In the reconstructed Bohairic pronunciation of, say, the 3rd or 4th century AD. Okay, very good. So, doing that again, since it's a complete sentence. In beginning was the word, and the word was with God. Okay? Chen tarke ne pisachi pe. Woch pisachi nafke chaten epnuti. This is the only thing that would be a little bit difficult to pronounce. Like, you might know the pronunciation of every letter, but like, what's this? Some peculiar things that but even those peculiar things you can probably pick up from the context, from doing this again and again. Let me continue with what I was doing a few minutes ago, which is what I'm showing you now. And God was the Word. Woch ne unuti pe pisachi. Woch ne unuti pe pisachi. Now, how I'm doing this, I think, is important. I think the saying aloud is really helping me, and really kind of the English aloud too, because I want to hear this and kind of make sense of the phrases in this very, very clear, very literal way. Okay, where was beginning? Pisachi, and God was the word. Woch ne unoti pe pisachi. I'm going to do a little bit, at least this first paragraph, before I do more explanatory explaining of what it is I'm doing. Okay. Pi. Where's this pi lead? This. Okay. This one who was from beginning with God. So this one. So this who. Maybe this. So the who goes to the one. This who. This who. Kind of like Greek. This who was from beginning with God. Pi enafke is gen inhe chaten ipnuti. So pi enafke is gen he chaten ipnuti. Okay. All things became through him. Hob niven au shopi evol hitotov. Okay, let me do that again. All things became through him. Shob niven au shopi evol hitotov. Why am I reading a second time? I was able to sound it out, but I want to really internalize the meaning. All things became through him. Hob niven au shopi evol hitotov. And word for word, it's real close to this. So hob, I think I've seen hob before, and niven. These go to get like thing. Oh, I was like this. Yeah, this is all, and this is thing. See, I'm remembering vocabulary. I've seen smattering of this vocabulary in the grammar books I've seen in the past, and I remember some bits of grammar. Oh wait, I won't do too much analysis. I'm going to keep doing a whole paragraph, so you just really see what I'm doing, and why I think it works. By the way, it's a lot like what Alexander Arguelles recommends, and a lot of it's next best thing to shadowing when you don't have audio available. And without him did not anything become of, literally in, that which became. This is really weird. I mean, it's already weird in the Greek. It's to say nothing of a normal English translation. So I want to like really wrap my brain around this new way of saying this. So, and without him did not anything become of in that which became. Woch at chnuf mpe li shopi chen pe etav shopi. Okay, one more time. And without him did not anything become of that which became. I remember this in the Greek. Woch af at chnuf mpe li shopi chen pe etav shopi. the gesticulating helps. I'm really kind of hammering these syllables and trying to hear it. But I'm picking things up. The shopi I'm starting to feel this. The chen, of course, means in. That's easy enough to figure out in a few seconds if I didn't already remember that from a year and a half ago, since the last time I really studied this beautiful and fascinating language. Now, where was it? I think which became. So the life was that which is in him. Okay. Pe bonch. That's your ankh word, right? Your ankh word. So ne bonch beten chitiv. Now I already forgot exactly what it is. The life was that which is in him. The life was that which is in him. Ne bonch beten chitiv. Maybe the che and the chen are related. And I remember the f is him. And anyway, I did a first paragraph. This, I think, actually is the way to do it, everybody. Maybe, basically, there's a lot more pain and confusion potentially involved with this than if you have a good graded reader. But there are no good graded readers for Greek yet. They all are mediocre to bad, as I've discussed. There's a great one for Latin, which is Famiglia Romana, and people have come up with a lot of other great things for Latin too. But there are a lot of languages out there where there are like I would love to try this for Hebrew. There's the wonderful Aleph with Beth. I can't remember. I love the channel. But I haven't looked at Hebrew in years, and I would like to. But it's like, but I need to like learn all these things, all this grammar. Well, maybe not. Maybe. Of course, I need to learn all those things to actually master the language, but since input is the most important thing, instead of committing myself, I need to watch 100 Aleph with Beth videos before I start, really getting into, reading Genesis in the original, why don't I do something a little bit different? This is the closest thing to what I did, I think, when I started learning Japanese long ago. It was like, I just need input. I'll watch anime, which I didn't do before. I like anime a lot now, but I didn't watch it before. And now, so what I did is I would watch it with the English subtitles, and I would follow what's going on, and I would be getting the auditory input of what I was hearing. And that really helped because I was able to feel things in context. And if I want to be able to read, like I like to be able to write a little bit in this language, but I found like going through the mechanical process of having almost no input except for a few phrases in grammar books and a little bit from, Weiss now Schomt, wonderful Polish book, but not like continuous, sentences. Like I want to be able to write a few paragraphs. I would like to be able to take notes, describe my day, have a diary in Coptic. I can't do that without having seen more text. As important as all of those things are, it's important to have the mastery of the conversational, like the Polish books, all of them are about that. But for use in the classroom, and I don't have anyone else to learn this with, as much as I'd love to dedicate so much of my time to Coptic, my concentration has mostly been, especially this year, on just being able to comfortably read Attic, which now I can. Now I love Attic, I love Plato. I just pick up Plato like, this is so nice. And that was not something that was true before. And the way I got good at it was by I finished the Ranieri Roberts approach by reading all those readers. And I was already reading, normal, advanced, whatever, literature in Greek, but it wasn't as comfortable as it is now. I read all those readers. It just what is reading? What is reading? Let's talk about that. Reading, so many different things. Obstacles to reading in a foreign language, I think, are primarily based on vocabulary, and then recognizing the alternations to that vocabulary. The changes, morphological usually, like in Greek, like you got infixes, montano becomes ematon, and all these weird things. You'd have to recognize those changes and know about them somehow. And Coptic, in a lot of ways, is actually easier because it's more agglutinative at most. You just jam things onto the front or the end, and you don't have a lot of those changes. So I don't. Maybe I'm making it seem easier than it is, but I think this is it. Let's do a little more, and because this is fun. This is fun for me now, because I'm actually finally reading this language. I know how to pronounce it, more or less. Not great, but I can, get through a reconstructed Bohairic pronunciation of the first millennium. I remember some of these grammar points, but a lot of the vocabulary, like reading this without the English, even though I know it's John, would really be struggling. Because John I know well. I've done the audiobook and four pronunciations, plus Latin and 2, so that's 6 altogether, and English. Anyway, so I know this really well, but it could also be something I don't know well, like the Gospel of Luke. I haven't read as much of it, and so I would need to pay closer attention to the English translation for some of those. But I know this well. Actually, it doesn't kind of help. You see how differently it's phrased. Anyway, I want to start with John because I know John. It's like, okay, well, I know this. I like this. Let's rock and roll. Okay, so life was within him. Yeah, we did that. And the life was the light of the men. Woch. Bonch be poini in biromi be. Woch is another and the light gave light in the darkness. Woch bi woini af woini gen bi kaki. Gen bi kaki. Okay, one more in this paragraph. The light gave light in the darkness, and the darkness did not apprehend him. Woch impe bi kaki tahof. Okay, let me do this one more time, this paragraph. And the life was the light of the men, and the light gave light in the darkness, and the darkness did not apprehend him. Woch bonch be ne woch bonch ne puoni iniromi pe. I said that wrong earlier. This wasn't like pek. I know it's because the N looks like the P. I know I'm getting a lot wrong, but anyway, I'm reading. I swear I'm reading. Imbiromi pe. Woch imbiromi afer woini gen bikaki. Woch impe bikaki tahof. What's tahof again? Tahof. So apprehended him somehow. Now, there's probably a lot of interesting things grammar-wise that I do not follow yet, or I don't remember. But I remember the article, the definite article, the arche, feminine, right? And bi, sache. Remember, the ba is the masculine, the the is the feminine, and the na is the plural. I remember that. Pi, remember there's this, and pe, but a lot of other stuff I've been picking up now. Woh. If you had asked me an hour ago, how do you say and in Coptic? I would have like, brr. But now I've read this paragraph, these two first paragraphs a couple of times. Now it's going to stick. I mean, and this is, I don't know. I just love how this language sounds. I love the beginning of the Gospel of John. Oh, by the way, Evangelion kata Ioannis. Well, that's easy. That's just Greek. I love how many Greek things they put in the Coptic. It's very, very convenient. All right. So this is sort of a stage one thing. If you want to start reading an ancient language, say, I'm just trying to imagine what situation you're in. Right now, you want to learn a language. I know it. If you're following this channel, you want to learn some language a little better than you already do. Could be Italian, could be modern language, could be Chinese, Hindi, Swahili, German, French, Spanish, ancient Greek, could be Latin, right? You want to learn now. I know you do. Go to BibleGateway.com. Have the English side on the one, and then as long as you can sound out the words, I think this is important. You need to be able to sound out the words to some approximation of them, that where you think, I'm in the ballpark. That's how I feel about the Bohairic Coptic pronunciation. I feel like I'm in the ballpark enough to do this for myself. A part of reading well is understanding what you're reading, but how could you understand things if you don't know how to read the language? And how do you read the language if you don't know it? And how do you learn it if you can't read it? Anyway, this is a chicken and egg thing, and this is my trick to my trick. Gosh, people have been doing this for thousands of years. You had a translation. I know the ancient Romans did this. They had a translation, at least I think they did, of, I don't know, Plato. And then they had the Latin, and like, okay, it means this. Oh, okay. And then they would read it again and again. And this is the other part of the trick here. You read it again, because people, I'm sure, like, I'm from the comprehensible input philosophy. Ever since I got Familia Romana, I understood, this is it. I had modern language classes long before I had any ancient languages. You want to acquire the language through input in some way. And graded readers are such a beautiful way in ancient languages. But graded readers can present a lot of problems. And if one's approach is focused on thinking about grammar, like, I think grammar can really only be properly understood and acquired with context. I'm getting so much context right now. And people don't want to do the translation because they know that grammar translation is bad. And it is, for the most part. It is a tool to work with languages, especially if, like, I just can't puzzle this out. I remember doing that at some point with some Greek stuff that was way beyond me years ago. And I was like, let me just, I maybe wrote out, or I settled out just a couple words or a phrase, and it helped me get inside the text I was looking at. Might have even been part of the Gospel of John. I don't remember. Or, of course, looking up, because if you're looking at a text and you don't know the word, what are you going to do? You're going to look it up, of course. You're going to try to translate that word somehow. Writing out a full English translation of a phrase or a sentence, it's not going to kill you. But I was just, I wanted to, stay in the language as much as possible. If you already have a translation, though, which is certainly true of almost any text you probably want to read, including, and the Bible's a great place to go if you can deal with the Bible. Some people just don't want to read it. I get it. But it's a really useful resource. What was my point? You got the English. I have the English here. Now, if I never advanced past this point, I was able to do some interesting things, but this is only a stepping stone. It might be a really effective technique, though. So I have the English. I can refer to it if I need it. But now I'm going to read through this again and see what happens. When I don't understand something, where I'm just the phrase, the meaning, the basic, like what's going on, I'm going to look over here, and I'll tell you when that is, if it happens. Hen tarke ne pisachi pe, woch pisachi nafke chaten pnuti. Nafke pisachi. Woch pisachi nafke chaten pnuti. I remember the meaning of that, and the word was with God. Woch ne unuti pe pisachi. And the word was God, right? Let me look over here. And the word was with God. So this nafke chaten must somehow means with. Not exactly how, not exactly sure how, but it does. Okay, so I'm just kind of like, whoop, follow that away. This nafke for later. Oh, and you're right. Wait. Of course, we got a fa here. This is probably a masculine. The na and the and right, past tenses. This is was. I barely learned present tenses. This is one of the disadvantages of only working with present tense forever and ever and ever. Because then you see past tenses, which are totally normal in actual language, but you have this thing, I need to scaffold the grammar. I need to not keep the past tenses away from you as long as possible, so you're used to the present tense first. It's a technique, but maybe it's not the best thing for gaining fluency and literacy. Moving on. Okay, so I'm going to say this again. Hen tarke ne pisachi pe, wo pisachi nafke chaten pnuti. Wo ne unuti pe pisachi. I'm going to say that again. Wo ne unuti pe pisachi. Wo ne unuti Be pisachi. Right. Pai, and the word was with God, right? I remember that. Pai enafke is gen he pai enafke pai enafke is gen he chaten pnuti. Pai enafke. So this nafke, with, and the chaten was with God. Pi and the word, so pi, okay, ish. So whatever this is, I don't remember. But pi, this, and enafke, chaten, pnuti, and the word was, and the word, and this was with God, and then this I don't remember. Let's look. Okay. The beginning. And from the beginning. Is chen he. So this means, somehow means from beginning. Pai enafke is chen he chaten pnuti. Okay, moving on. Chob niven au shopi evol hitotov. Right. Things. This is becoming something shopi evol hitotov. Hob niven au shopi evol hitotov. Au shopi. Remember, this is a they. This is they prefix. Shopi evol and they and and all things, right? The all things became. Au shopi. They became. Au shopi evol hitotov. Through evol, kind of a prepositional word, and then the hitotov, through became, or the in, that which became, and everything, and all things became through him. Okay. Hob niven au shopi evol hitotov. Woch at chnuf mpe. This is a negative, not is. Is not mpe. Li shopi chen pe. Etaf shopi. Right. This is the udehen hotigegonen, right? Uden hogegonen. Etaf shopi. Etaf shopi. So became. Woch at chnuf impe li shopi hen pe etaf shopi. I remember this. I understand, and nothing nothing became except through him, essentially. Ne ponch peten chetiv. Ponch, life. Ne with him, life through him. What does it give? The life was that. The life was that which is in him. Life was that which in him. Okay. Every time I read this, it starts to make more and more sense. Woch impoch pe poini in biuromi pe. So we have light and we have men or people, or man potentially. And the life was the light in the people, in men. And life was the light of men. Okay, it says of. Right. So it's a kind of a genitive or possessive. Woch ponch ne poimi impiromi pe. Woch pi voini af voini gen pikaki. Right. Right. And the light right after the light of, oh right, this voini is light, and it lights, and the light lights gen pikaki, in the darkness. This kaki, that's related to Kemi, I think, which is the dark land. This ka, I think they're related, meaning Egypt, the Kemi, Kemi. Wo Mbe bikaki tahof. Wo mbe and was not the darkness. Oh, this is some verb thing. Let me look on the word. Apprehend it. Oh, right. And the darkness did not. Oh, right. And the darkness did not apprehend it. They didn't take it. Wo mbe bikaki tahof. Interesting too. I've recited this in Greek so many times. You think I'd remember the Greek really well, but this is so different that it kind of throws you. So, guys, what do you think? I think this is a really interesting technique. And going through this, I'm going a little bit slower because I'm trying to describe things than I was going on my own before I started recording. But this is so interesting. This is because when I first looked at this, like, oh my God, I can't understand anything. And I had the English, but I was like, well, I kind of know this. And I was kind of, all right, so this is what I did before. A year and a half ago when I had this, thought, oh, this is really cool, but I need to learn the grammar better. Found a really good grammar book to go through, make things nice and simple. And it's like, let me just get through these concepts, and they have some translation exercises, do all that. But it wasn't sticking. And it's like, let me look at this. And then I did. It's like, and I could make things out. But mostly I was trying to translate words. There are very few dictionaries available. That's another thing, too. They didn't really have dictionaries in antiquity, but they did have translations. So you could learn by means of a translation, like I'm doing here. And maybe that's just more effective. Maybe we should all do this very early in our learning of the language. And because I think we're just afraid. This was my experience, come to think of it, with the Kephalos challenge. Reciting Homer before I understood it. Getting a sense of it through the English, and then reciting it, and then memorizing it, and then I could parse everything and understand so much more. This is a similar notion, and I think it's a good cheat code. Well, I feel like reading a little bit more of this. Let's get to the part where John the Baptist starts to talk. Okay, because you get the point. I don't need to go with this too much. I'm just excited, and I'd like to do some more videos on this, like for the main channel, demonstrating how I do, like, what if I do this consistently? Here's the problem. Okay, this is what I want to do on Fluently Plus, because I think this is a really good idea that can help people now. Ideally, I would do this for weeks or months with a language I do not know well, like Coptic. Maybe I'll do it with Hebrew at some point, and see if it helps. Because if I can read this stuff, there's so much syntax and vocabulary here that's repeated in the language in the Gospels that I think it's very helpful. Okay, let us the Hof, right? That was a Brandon. Okay, there was, or it became a man sent from through God. Avshopi, ingeo, ingeu, Romi, au, warpf, evol hiten pnuti, epifran pe Ioannes. Right, there was a man from through this end, and his name was John, right? Name being John. So that's the epifran pe Ioannis. This one came for a witness. Pai afi emet, that he metre hina, there's Greek. Hina, also demonstrative clearly of the fact that the rough breathing is still a part of the Greek language into the 3rd and 4th century AD. Could be different in different dialects, but the Egyptians certainly were hearing it, because otherwise they wouldn't have borrowed this word. Because they borrowed Greek words in ways that reflect the pronunciation of the time. So if they have something, it's not, to say it's an archaism is probably not right. Might bear witness of the light. Okay. So this metre is witness. It might bear witness. Hina in tef metre ha pivoini. Ha pivoini. of the light. So bear witness for the something, whatever cha means, of the light in this situation. That all might believe through him. Okay, hina, that, in order that, hina, inte, one, niven. I remember seeing one, and I just can't remember its precise translation, but I have the gist over here. Hina, inte, one, niven, nafti, evol, hitotov. Nafti, nafti, nahti, that he might bear witness. That might believe through him. Nahti. That's probably, yeah, that's got to be believe, because everything else is kind of hina, inte, wop niven. So that everyone, nahti evol hitotev, believe through him. Cool. Nahti. And parsing this, what are grammatical morphology things like the na or the ti, or the na is probably grammatical morphology, but maybe not the ti. Little grammatical words, but these seeing this is just so helpful. Seeing it in the context of actual prose. This is the real prose of the real Coptic language. He was not the light, but came that he might bear witness to the light. So he was not the light, but came that he might bear witness to the light. Okay. Ne ntof. Remember this from the nto, this ntof and so forth from Weiss now Schomt. Ne ntof ampe bi voini. Ne ntof ampe. This is the is not. The initial ne, I don't remember what that means. I'll figure it out though. Because this is the singular, and that's, it's something. It's okay. I'll getting the context, getting this dozens of times, this initial ne that I'm not quite sure about yet. Eventually, it will probably become clear on its own, or I'll just accept it, and then I can look at a grammar and then find out, that's what it is. And put context to it, because this is not a method that you would necessarily use without ever consulting a grammar. You get the input before consulting a grammar, a grammatical morphology and syntax explainer book, which makes so much more sense once you've seen some actual text. Okay, moving on. It's not the light, but he was not the light. But to bear witness, right? Allah hina in tef metre. This is clearly the witness. Metre. Metre. Cha of the light, or for cha bi voini. He's the witness to the light, but he wasn't the light, but he was just to bear witness to the light. So it's pleonastic, but that's fine. Repetition is good. Cha bi voini. Next. That which giveth light to every... there was becoming the true light. There was becoming the true light. That's interesting. Naf shop. Shop is... I remember seeing that before. Shopi and shop. This is becoming. So naf shop. Inje biwoini. Intap mei. What is this again? There was becoming the true light. Okay, where's the... This must be this is somehow the light. Naf shop became inje biwoini, so something the light. Intapme, this must be true. Intapme, the true or real light. This is becoming the true light. Pe, so which, that which giveth light to every man. Pe et voini. So that light, erumi niven. So men, all people, a man who cometh to the world. Okay. Eteneu epikosmos. Okay. The world. Okay, I want to reread this from here. Hina inte won niven nafti evol hitotov. Ne intof ampe biwoini. Allah hina intef metre ha biwoini. Nafshop inje biwoini intap mei. Pe eter voini. Eromi niven etneu epikosmos. Epikosmos. It's starting to sink in. This is terrific. In the world. He was 10. Look at that. The numbers are right there. Convenient. This is what's so nice about the Bible. Just one sentence, one verse at a time. Very easy to follow. All right, let's finish the paragraph and I'll wrap up with the final comments. He was beginning in the world. Nafke, I remember this from earlier. Chen bikosmospe. Nafke, he was being. Beginning. He was being. Nafke chen bikosmospe. He was being in the world. Nafke chen bikosmospe. And the world became through him. Woh bikosmos af shopi evol hitotev. Woh bikosmos af shopi evol hitotev. And the world, it became evol hitotev, because of him, or through him. It became through him. And the world did not know him. Woh, that's a negation. Woh impe bikosmos swonf, and that's knowing somehow. No, swonf. I said know him, and the impe did not. Woh impe bikosmos swonf. So I'm seeing this copula with the knowing. It's very different than how did not know. It's very different than how we deal with those things in the language. This is so much fun. I've been wanting to do Coptic again, but I have to finish the grammar book. But it takes so much effort. We can make excuses to the end of time. Well, you can't, because we can all live that long. We make excuses for a while for why we're not reading the language that we want to read. Here it is. Here's Colin's book, fantastic, also better. I read this with some pointing, obviously I just took Colin's class, but more than that, I was able to learn a comfortable, being able to read a lot of this. Wait, actually, I'm going to turn a random page, see how this goes. After tham they also mid alfieve quenesperek, hey elda mid tham campum to fir de wiche. So I'm remembering this. This is great. So I can recite it, I remember the context, and I've studied very little of the grammar. Yeah, I have a lot of advantages as an English speaker to be able to acquire it. But that's the idea, that you don't necessarily need to study the grammar to acquire the grammar explicitly. You should eventually, if you want to really master the language. It's always a foreign language, but you need to get the input you need to read. So I think this is a brilliant way to start to deal with language learning. There's a stigma with using translation, and most of that stigma, I think, is appropriately put on taking this, rendering it into this, or better, English prose, and then reading the English and saying, I read it. That's, I think, what is mostly done in these ancient language traditional studies, of the 20th century to the present day, where you translate the ancient language into the modern one. You read this and you understand it, instead of using this as a way to get to this. So what I now have to do, if I want to be serious about this, is, I did this experiment, but this is only step 1. And step 2 is to try to read it again and again. Chentarke ne pisaci pe. Wok pisaci navke chaten pnuti. Wok ne unuti pe pisaci. Pai enavke is chen nhe chaten pnuti. Hob niven au shopi e vol hitotif. Woch af chnuf npe li shopi hen pe etaf shopi. Ne bunk beten hetif. Now, a lot of my effort is going into just sounding out the words. How do you get good at sounding out the words? Sounding out the words hundreds of thousands of times until you get it. At the same time of doing some of that phonics practice, I have the context over here. I'm literally learning how to read Coptic in front of you. Now, you can do this too. I chose Coptic today because it's a language where I've studied a little bit of the grammar, but not much of the language. What's the language? The language is here. This is the prose. This is I don't know. I just think this is something I could have done so long ago with Greek. Like now I'm reading Greek very comfortably. I did use the readers, but they are painful. A lot of them. Not all. Some are really good. But what if I had started at an early stage instead of just trying to use these readers? Like I was stuck on Athenase for years. Like I just need to read this, right? It's just I'm not getting it. What if instead I had used I don't know. I learned a lot of because I didn't finish all those readers. I went to the Gospel of John. I had this and I had the Greek and I went through it. Actually, that was it. That was exactly how I learned how to read Greek. I read the Gospel of John. I learned everything in it, and then I recited it, made an audiobook, helped me a lot. I decided, well, let me put this on my audiobook store. And then I recited it many, many more times, and I know it. I know the Greek well, which set me up comfortably to look at other New Testament Greek, and then, in fact, other classical Greek, too. Certainly other Koine Greek, and then I went to Lucian's Judgment of the Goddesses. I did all these things, and they were great stepping stones. And I looked at, when I started, I look at the English translation, and here's maybe one reason why this is particularly effective. You can learn the basic words of things, but a lot of more sophisticated bits of grammar, vocabulary, syntax, and usage, idiom in particular, aren't necessarily especially clear. For example, the fact that in the beginning of the Apology, what's the beginning of the Apology? Plato, it's hotimen humes o andres athenaioi pepontate hypotonemon kategoron o koida. The really weird thing there is that pepontate is then followed by hypo, and it's like you suffered hypo, but hypo in this construction, hypotonemon kategoron, that something was done to you by. This is a passive construction, but pepontate is an active verb. And you see that in the translation, something of the effect of, I don't know what a good translation would be, but you see something of the effect of what you suffered on account of, but it's a passive construction. Essentially, you get some sense, if you were just to go from knowing the basic words in the Greek and then seeing this, you might be really perplexed. But having an English translation, which is telling you this is exactly what it means, don't worry, telling you that is enough to at least get you on the right track, which is that, this is clearly a passive construction, even though the verb is active. I'll file that for later. And then you see something like apoteneskin, hypo. Then you start to realize that some active verbs are used in passive constructions in Greek. And something like apoteneskin, you learn that the verb to die is the passive of killed, because kill is apoktenen, but it doesn't normally take passive forms. It's suppleted by a different verb entirely, which is in the active form, which is the verb to die. And there are different ways you can learn that. You can either be told that and then never see it for a long time until you finally see it in an actual thing, or you learn Greek grammar and vocabulary, you used readers, but you've never seen that before. Then you see it in the wild, but you're trying to puzzle through the Greek without an English translation. You look things up in the dictionary if you don't really know. But the clear elegance of a decent English translation, or whatever it could be Latin. Latin's great too. Actually, I have my finger the apology. I just had it over here. Here's my one. It's a great book, the Contubernales version, and it has the Latin. And if you read Latin fluently like me, seeing the Latin, a decent Latin translation, is very comfortable. Like, oh, this is good. And I'm also getting some more of another language. Occasionally, just getting just the comfort. It's much more comfortable than plain old Greek, but it's a little bit harder. And so I feel like, if I'm using that, I'm getting a little bit of another language too, which is nice. So what certain words and usages really mean may not be clear even if you worked up to it, even if you actually learned everything you were supposed to learn from those books or readers or textbooks. They just didn't. Maybe they mention weird things, a couple of them that I mentioned today, about the Greek in particular. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe certain words you put together, like lantano, escape notice of. But again, at the beginning of the apology, it's epilatomen. Oligo emautu, epilatomen. Epilatomen. But you see epi and latomen, and then you think, well, on escape notice of, but it means forget. Maybe to a Greek they felt like, it's an extension of the lantano, the epilantanomai. Maybe that's perfectly. Those are the same thing, right? To us, though, maybe not. And having a decent translation can really help clue us into that. And also seeing the oligu emautu, a little bit of myself I forgot, and then seeing an English version of it that just like comes in, no, this isn't, you're on the right track. I don't know. It just seems to work as a very effective way to get inside the literature now, the real prose now. But the only way this works long term after step one is you have to reread the same thing again every day until you're very comfortable with what this means. Even if some things like, what's something that's kind of odd to me, the nafke, chaten, penuti, I remember what this means, but I'm not quite sure about the nafke. I've seen it many times, though, to the point where I'll get it. I know I'm confident I'll get it. The hli, I wasn't quite sure what that was, but I remember the shopi, hen, but the woch, at, chnuf, this must mean without. Empe li shopi. And I remember the shopi's becoming, and the li, I've seen it before, but I don't remember. But I know it's about, like, I remember the original language version that this is, but nothing can happen that's not through him. So the li shopi becoming hen pe etaf shopi, that has been made. Something like that. So, the off is the past. Every time I look at it, I'm remembering something else from some grammar lesson I looked at in one of those grammar books, and it's starting to become clear. Anyway, I'm going to stop because I'm just going to endlessly ramble. I hope you found this effective. Try this today. Try this now for the language that you want to read. By the way, what if you know the language well? Latin? I mean, I know Latin so comfortably that I feel like I can open up anything, but I don't know everything. Maybe I shouldn't be so overconfident. Maybe I should look at a decent English translation of Horace. I've not read too many of his poems. The ones I've read I love, but maybe I think I understand, but perhaps I don't. If I see a good translation of it while I'm working through it, I might, and reciting and enjoying the sound of it, I might really understand, like, oh, that's what it means. I was misunderstanding something, some vocabulary word. I might have, missed a consonant or something and took one word for something else just because I read it quickly. So this is the way to really get precise. Okay, gonna stop. Thank you so much for watching. Share this if you think this is helpful. Please let me know in the comments if this is helpful. If you want to see me try to do more Coptic, I'd love to, if I can find the time. I would love to do more Coptic and really be able to at least comfortably read the Gospel of John and other New Testament stuff and hopefully be able to write it. So I think this is the trick. This is the ticket, I think. Let me know. Okay. Ujai.